welcome to the League of Women Voters, Macomb County, and the League of Women Voters, Oakland Area Candidate Forum for U.S. Congressional District 10. My name is Catherine Laboon, and I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Macomb County. U.S. House District 10 covers in Macomb County, Centerline, Clinton Township, East Point, Fraser, Harrison Township, Roseville, St. Clair Shores, Shelby Township, Sterling Heights, Utica, Warren, and portions of Grosse Pointe Shores and Macomb Township. In Oakland County, it covers Rochester and Rochester Hills. The League of Women Voters is a national organization whose mission is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League neither opposes nor supports candidates or political parties. We welcome all citizens aged 16 and over to membership. I would now like to introduce our moderator for this evening, League member Maria Rivera.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Congressional District 10 Candidate Forum, being conducted at the Macomb Community College South Campus on 12 Mile Road. My name is Maria Rivera and I'll be moderating this evening's forum. This presentation of candidates is for the primary election on Tuesday, August 6th. We ask that everybody please turn off your cell phones, and electronics of any kind are not to be used during the forum. There are no candidate campaign materials allowed in this forum room. This includes buttons, coffee mugs, t-shirts, etc. All campaign materials are to be kept out of the forum room and can be distributed only after the forum is completed. The format for this forum has been established by the League of Women Voters. It was reviewed with and agreed to by each candidate prior to the forum. There are 6 candidates running for District 10, one as a write-in candidate. All eligible candidates have been invited to participate in this forum for the August 6th primary. Please note this forum is about the presentation of the candidates and their opinions to enable voters to make an informed decision at the polls. All eligible candidates were invited to participate. Candidates running for office, 1 seat for a 2-year term, are in alphabetical order: Emily Bush, John James, Carol Marlinga, Rhonda Powell, running as a write-in candidate, Tiffany Tilley, and Diane Young. The League of Women Voters is providing this forum as an opportunity for voters to learn about the views of the candidates. Statements expressed by the candidates are not endorsed nor opposed by the League of Women Voters. Also, the League of Women Voters does not certify any candidate responses to questions as accurate. Voters are encouraged to fact-check information shared at the forum. Each candidate will be allowed a 1-minute opening statement, a 1-minute closing statement, and a 1-minute response to each question. I'd now like to introduce the candidates who have agreed to participate in tonight's forum, once again in alphabetical order. Emily Bush, Carol Marlinga, Rhonda Powell, Tiffany Tilley, and Diane Young. The seating arrangement has been determined by drawn lots just prior to this forum. Assisting tonight are several volunteers and League members. Forum coordinators are Judy Bateman from the League of Women Voters Oakland area and Kathy Poor from League of Women Voters Macomb County. Forum greeters were Jerry DeMare, Kathy and John Ketters, and is Abdullah here? I don't know if he showed up. Oh, very good. Question gatherers are Christine Allen, Rosemary Allen, Sylvia Kokasa, and Debbie Griffith. Question sorters are Terry Gibb, Jerry Burden, and Catherine Laboon. Timekeeper is Nanette Norbakish. Questions are written by members of the audience and given to one of our question gatherers who will be circulating around. If you need a card or a pencil, they'll be around. Just raise your hand and they'll come. The question gatherers will give the questions to the question sorters, who will sort the questions for redundancy and inappropriate language. Our timekeeper, League member Nanette Norbakish, will hold up a card and demonstrate, if everybody can see, when there's 15 seconds remaining on the clock, and then stop when you are to close your sentence. There are to be no verbal comments or applause from the audience during the forum. So please be respectful of candidates who are providing valuable voter information and the voters who need this information to make an informed decision at the polls. As moderator, I reserve the right to close discussion on any question. We will begin with the candidates' 1-minute opening statements. Closing statements will be in reverse order. So 1-minute opening statement, Ms. Rhonda Powell.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thanks to all of you for being here. Thanks so much to the League for hosting this event. Again, my name is Rhonda Powell. I am a 4th-generation resident of Macomb County and longtime community nonprofit leader and government leader and advocate that, so many people would say I'm an advocate and a fighter. I am running as a write-in candidate because I will never be bullied. I won't be bullied off the ballot. And it just, things that happen show we have a lot of work to do. Government can work a whole lot better for all of us. It solidifies the reason why I'm in this race. As a former director over Head Start, Meals on Wheels, programs to help with utility assistance, I fully understand the ins and outs of government. And it's time that we have a real leader who understands day one how to pull the right levers.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. And Ms. Diane Young.
Hello, my name is Diane Young, and I am a financial planner and small business owner. I'm a proud product of this community. I grew up here in Macomb County. I built my business and raised my family right here in this very district. In fact, my husband is an Associate Dean of Science right here at Macomb Community College. My top goals for Congress are protecting Social Security and Medicare by fully funding the programs and fighting against all efforts to raise the retirement age, defending reproductive freedom, enshrining Roe v. Wade into law, and making sure we have access to safe medications and IVF. And I will also fight rising cost and inflation and make sure we're providing relief to working class Americans. I support streamlining our tax code to give middle-income families a break and make big corporations pay their fair share. There is not one financial planner in Congress right now, and I think it's time to send a financial planner to Congress to bring results instead of rhetoric. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Next, 1-minute opening statement, Ms. Tiffany Tilley.
Good evening. First, I want to thank the League and all of you for being here tonight. I want to thank the League for putting this event on. Winston Churchill once said, "We make a living by what we give, but we make a life by what we give." I've lived a life of service. I've used the experiences that I've had, the tragedies that I've experienced and that I've witnessed. From having a sick mom at 10 years old, my mom was diagnosed with MS. She began having strokes, and I became a caregiver at a very early age. From losing a brother and a cousin to gun violence, and to witnessing different people suffer from substance abuse and their struggles. I've used all of this to be an advocate in our communities, to fight for social justice issues, and I definitely want to fight for you in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tilley. And Mr. Carl Marlinga, 1-minute opening statement.
My name is Carl Marlinga. I've served this county as a prosecuting attorney. As a prosecutor, I did the usual things that a prosecutor does, but I also created the nation's first environmental protection unit to protect the waters of Lake St. Clair. I went on to be a probate court judge and then a circuit court judge. As a circuit court judge, I instituted an innovative program called the Macomb County Mental Health Court, which takes offenders who otherwise might be going to prison and gets them treatment and 2 years intensive probation appearing before me on Mondays every week to tell me the ups and downs in the last week. I know that rehabilitation works. When I go to Washington, I want to take the things I've learned as a prosecutor and as a judge. We can do better in this country to protect ourselves and also to make sure that the citizens of this country lead good, productive lives. I've been endorsed by the Detroit Free Press and the MEA.
Thank you, Mr. Marlinga. And Ms. Emily Bush, opening statement.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to the League for putting on this forum. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's great to see everyone this evening. My name is Emily Bush, and I'm running for Congress because my son Andrew had to run for his life from an active shooter at Oxford High School. I'm running because I don't think that kids should have to worry about who's going to come in the front door of their school or their classroom. And unfortunately, when kids are worried about these events, they can't learn. I'll tell you that the drive that I made to Meyer on November 30th, 2021 to pick up my son is no drive that any parent should have to make. As a pro-choice, I've been pro-choice my entire life in a time where we are seeing people say the quiet part out loud with a clawback of rights. I will be a fierce advocate for women's reproductive freedoms, and as the wife of a Marine and retired Union firefighter, I think it's important to note that I wouldn't be able to do this today without my husband's union negotiated firefighter pension. So I hope to earn your vote and your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. We have a microphone problem. Ms. Tilley, your microphone is on mute.
Is that on now?
Is that better? Okay, yes. Very good. We'll go to the first question, and Ms. Young, that'll go first to you. What do you think is the two most pressing issues in our country, and how would you address it?
So the two most important issues in our country, there's so many, but divisiveness is really pressing. I think dark money in our politics is a huge problem that's influencing our politics, so I think we need to end Citizens United. That would solve a lot of problems. And I think inequities in our tax code are really causing problems throughout our entire system. And as a financial planner, I'm uniquely qualified to take that issue on because I see how the reckless policymaking in Washington trickles down and impacts people's working lives. So fighting inflation, rising costs, when corporations are getting tax breaks from the government, yet they're not paying their employees a living wage, that is a problem. Right now, the top 5 wealthiest men in the world have the same net worth as the lowest 4.8 billion people. We have to do better, and we can lead the way here in the United States, and that's what the types of issues. I was really proud to be endorsed by an organization called Patriotic Millionaires, the veterans and things like that, that will work to fight these issues.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Thank you. And Ms. Tilley, what do you think are the two most pressing issues in our country, and how would you address them?
Our rights have been under attack, especially as women. So I think definitely one of the most important issues is women's rights. That's something that we need to continue to fight for. Women should have autonomy over their bodies. Women should have equal pay. And when women go in for health care services, they should have affordable and quality health care. So I definitely think that is one of the pressing issues for our nation. Of course, education is important. We have a lot of students that are just swamped with student loan debt. You know, we had in this country a model of the American dream. And with student loan debt, some people have student loan debt that amounts to what it costs to purchase a home. And we shouldn't live in a country where we can't have a decent education at an affordable price. So that is something I definitely want to fight for as well. Thank you. And Mr. Marlinga?
I would say probably the most important kitchen table issue is inflation. The rising costs are hurting all of us. And there's a way that this dovetails into another issue that I think looms in the background all the time, and that is the worsening effects of climate change. We have it within our power by embracing the new green technologies of wind, solar, tidal, geothermal power to fight climate change, but also to create an economy where prices go down, because the biggest driver of inflation is the cost of oil and gas, because every head of cabbage, every box of Cheerios that you buy is delivered by a vehicle which uses fossil fuels. We have to wean ourselves away from fossil fuels. It'll lower prices, plus in the process, we will create jobs that will employ tens of thousands in a new, green, clean economy.
Thank you so much. Before we go further, I want to check Diane Young's mic, please. Can you do a 1, 2, 3?
Oh, I turned it on.
Uh-oh.
I'll just leave it on.
Yeah, just leave them on. Should we do another check? Is everybody confident their microphone is on? Okay. Very good. So, Ms. Bush, what do you think are the two most pressing issues in our country, and how would you address them?
When we're living in a time right now where you can't go to a parade, you can't enter a grocery store, you can't go to a movie theater, you can't be in a public park without thinking about potentially being shot. For me, a lack of that feeling of safety and security when we're out in public, it is incredibly pressing to me as an entire nation. As far as addressing that, we have the majority of Americans who continue to ask for and demand common sense federal gun safety legislation. We have a blueprint here in Michigan as to what needs to be done federally. So that is the first issue that I would tackle. And the second is women's reproductive freedoms. When Republicans are saying the quiet part out loud, that they want to take away our right to an abortion. We have an entire generation of young women coming up behind us all that should not live in a world where that right is dependent upon your zip code.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Powell, please.
I believe that the most pressing issue of our time is democracy. And it is definitely on the ballot again. Throughout various points in history, we have been called upon to make true the Constitution that we all know. And I feel like that mantle has fallen on us in this moment to truly make real and realize the Constitution for all folks, because all of these other issues, if I'm not free, no one is free. So we can't, if we cherry pick about this right and that right, it is all because our democracy is not authentic. That responsibility rests upon all of us to make that document true. Our economic equity is just another fallout of how the lack of really having a constitution that is true to all citizens. It shows up in how our budgets.
Thank you so much. Next question, we'll go first to Ms. Tilley. In what ways have you been involved in the community in Congressional District 10?
So I serve as the Vice President of the State Board of Education. I represent you as a state board member. I have fought for different education issues for foster care youth, different things that affect you here in this district. I have also represented you as the Young Dem Chair many, many moons ago under Sandy Levin when he was congressman here. I also serve in the district as a realtor. I work in the district. So I have served in different capacities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tilley. Mr. Marlinga?
Well, I've been very active in the American Cancer Society and the Leukemia Society of Michigan. Was honored as the lead volunteer for the American Cancer Society in the past. In addition to that, I've worked with women's groups to create the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiners Program so that victims of criminal sexual conduct, after enduring the tragedy and the horror and the viciousness of that crime, don't have to go to hospital emergency rooms where sometimes in the triage they are not taken first. We have facilities now where rape victims can be treated in a private setting. They're given top priority. And similarly, I helped create the Care House, which is a similar treatment facility for children. Other things I've done, but I think I'm proudest of those four.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bush?
As a, 22-year Metro Detroiter, I have traveled these streets as a business person in the private sector corporately and have worked with local business owners to grow their businesses as a salesperson in the medical and dental field. Most recently, since the shooting at Oxford High School, I have advocated for all Michiganders for gun safety legislation at the state level. I've testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee in favor of secure storage, and this is an effort to keep all of us safe, while also attending Advocacy Day in Lansing to, again, advocate for state-level gun safety legislation. So that impacts all Southeast Michiganders. Have started to, over the last year and a half, I've attended many coffee hours. I've reached out to local electeds and have had the opportunity to meet several local leaders in the last year and a half.
Thank you very much. And next, Ms. Powell, in what ways have you been involved in the community in District 10?
Well, as a proud daughter of Macomb, I've been fortunate to spend the vast majority of my professional career serving every demographic in Macomb County through Meals on Wheels programs, whether it was running the seniors program, the Macomb Community Action, the food, which included the food program. I run currently 2 nonprofit organizations that where we actively support children in initiatives. We backpacks to school. I mean, I have a long history of service right here in this district through the state and through local nonprofits and local government. There's not much that I haven't done. I run a homeless shelter here in the district and fully understand, it gives me a wonderful grasp on just the needs of the community.
Thank you very much. Ms. Young?
The question would be like, what haven't I worked on in this district? I've been so involved in so many different organizations, from the Art Center in Rochester, which puts on the Art and Apples Festival, to the Symphony here in Warren. I even headed up the millage program here for the college to make sure that they had long-term funding. I've been very involved in things like Rotary. I even served on boards at the Crittenton Hospital back in the day when it was still Crittenton. And the Chambers of Commerce. I even earned Businesswoman of the Year award once from the Rochester Regional Chamber. And I still write a monthly column in the Rochester Community Lifestyles on financial planning. So my roots are really deep in this district, and I'm always involved in everything I can, including serving as the treasurer of the Girl Scouts of Southeastern Michigan, which served 26,000 girls. And I'm really proud of my service there because we helped save camping for girls all across Southeastern Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next question, we'll go first to Mr. Marlinga. What legislation would you propose and support to address water quality in Lake St. Clair?
Back nearly 30 years ago, I was charged by the Board of Commissioners to find out the sources of pollution for Lake St. Clair. I found out that one large source is the contamination that comes from sewage being combined with drain water to be placed in combined sewer overflow basins that in heavy rain events doesn't get treated with chlorine enough to kill the bacteria. The sludge is pumped into the rivers and eventually finds the lake, and it's the cause of a great deal of contamination. On day one in Congress, I would introduce a bill to provide for separated sewer water systems from drainage water systems. In the sewage systems, you can make sure that you have enough disinfectant. You can clean out the particulates. so that when you release it, it's as clean as drinking water. This would be a great way to clean up the lake, but it's also a great public works way to employ thousands of people.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bush?
I think first and foremost, one of the things that I would do is work with local leadership to understand what specific legislation is needed for each municipality and how that relates to the health of our public waters. I would either sponsor or introduce any legislation to prevent any sort of drilling in our Great Lakes in Lake St. Clair, in order to protect the beautiful waters that we have here. But most importantly, again, I would work with the local leadership to hear exactly what needs to be done and what legislation they need in order to protect all of the waters in Southeast Michigan.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Powell, what legislation would you propose and support to address water quality in Lake St. Clair?
Well, I certainly, as a former Director of Health and Community Services from Macomb County, understand the importance of protecting our Great Lakes and our water sources. I fully agree with Carl Marlinga. And also, I think it's important for us to make sure we're holding corporations accountable so that our waterways are not being polluted, and that, you know, the communities that are most vulnerable are not bearing the weight of that toxic pollution, which we see happening so much. So I certainly would introduce legislation to make sure that corporations are held to higher account and that there is a much tighter rein on the amount of chemicals that can be leaked or you know, how they are drained and how they interact with our systems, our waterways.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Young.
Thank you. This is a very passionate issue of mine. The Great Lakes are 20% of the world's fresh water. In fact, we rate on Lake St. Clair, we have the largest freshwater delta in the world. So it's imperative that we protect our Great Lakes. We need to strengthen the Great Lakes Water Compact. I was really honored to be endorsed recently by Protect Our Michigan Waters, an environmental group. And one of the biggest things that we could do in Congress, as your congressperson, would be to fight for the infrastructure dollars needed to help shore up and protect our systems and protect our Great Lakes. Believe me, we are going to become a climate refugee state soon. And other states are going to want our water. And we are going to have to fight tooth and nail to protect it. And we need someone who understands that and is willing to stand up on that. My friends in California always say, we want your water. And I'm like, well, when you can give me sunshine in January, I'll maybe give you some water then. But we have to fight for that.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Tilley?
The waters here in Macomb County are beautiful. Lake St. Clair is beautiful. My family owns a cottage on Anger Bay. It's my home away from home. And one of the things that I instantly thought was the infrastructure dollars. On a federal level, that's the most important thing that I could do, is to fight to bring dollars back to the district to improve infrastructure and be an advocate for our waters, working with local government to make sure and ensure that the water, the lakes are preserved for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question, we'll go first to Ms. Bush. How would you decrease gun violence in the U.S.?
Wow, was that a softball? Well, like I said in my introduction, we have a blueprint here in Michigan. We have the trifecta, and they have passed recently 4 meaningful pieces of gun safety legislation: secure storage, a background check on every firearm sale, red flag laws, also known as extreme risk protection orders, and also the most recent domestic violence legislation. But first and foremost, there is a law that was passed. It goes by PLACA, which is a protective law that does not allow anyone to bring any sort of litigation against a gun manufacturer. We need to repeal PLACA and we need to hold firearm manufacturers accountable for the deadly nature of what they produce. So the minute that we're able to repeal that particular piece of legislation, I think that gun manufacturers may just want to regulate themselves. So that is absolutely one way that I would fight gun violence in this country.
Thank you very much. Ms. Powell?
Will you repeat the question?
How would you decrease gun violence in the U.S.?
Thank you. I think that we have to start with some of our most vulnerable communities and get folks to the table that are actively experiencing that gun violence every day. It's not enough to wait until it hits the communities that it's not supposed to hit for us to then take action. So I think getting all of these communities to the table and making sure that they are centered, their voices must be centered because they're the ones who are, having to live this or have lived with gun violence. So for me, everything runs through people. It starts with communities and making sure that children understand gun safety. As a young girl growing up in Macomb, in school, we had to take water safety because of our proximity to the Great Lakes. But we also need to do the same thing for our children who see weapons and think they're toys. We got to start to educate kids.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ms. Young?
Thank you. In addition, Michigan is now the beacon of hope when it comes to these laws. We just enacted laws that just went into effect in February. And when we had the incident at the splash pad, which was right by where my children went to school just 2 weeks ago, that potentially that mother could have utilized some of those laws to take the guns out of the house. We need to have that on a national level. And then we need to fund it because it needs to be educated to the public. We need to do just like we did when cars accidents were the #1 killer of children. We need to enact the same kind of laws that we did back then. When cars were killing our children, we put seatbelts in, we put airbags in, we made kids go into car seats. We have to take that same thoughtful approach at a national level about guns and address it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Tilley, how would you decrease gun violence in the U.S.?
This was the first issue that I started advocating for over 20 years ago. I took that same fight to the state board, and I drafted a resolution that was passed by the state board to push the legislators to pass gun safety laws, the new laws that we have. I was there when the governor signed it. This issue has multiple layers to it. We have to address some of the social ills, and we also have to address mental health. Laws are definitely important, but we have to have mental health support for people. We have to have resources for people. Governor Engler, unfortunately, dismantled mental health in the state. Ronald Reagan defunded mental health. So one of the things that I would like to fight for is federal gun safety laws, as well as increasing or reinstate the funding for mental health on a federal level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Marlinga?
I think we can all agree that people with felony records should not have weapons, that people who have had violence domestically or otherwise should be restricted from owning weapons. We all agree that people with serious violent mental health problems should not have weapons. Yet there are some in this country who say, let's not have background checks. Now, they say they're okay with some background checks, but the gun show loophole, other loopholes, if you don't close them, there will always be a way for somebody of violent tendencies, perhaps mentally ill, to get a gun. We have to close all of the loopholes, universal background checks. What we've done in Michigan is great. We have to take this, I think all of us agree, to a national level. We're from Michigan. We did it right. Now we're going to take it on a national level, close the loopholes, let law-abiding citizens have weapons, but let's not have weapons of war, and let's not have weapons in the hands of the violent and criminals.
Thank you so much. And next question, we'll go first to Ms. Powell. And this is kind of a two-part question. So first part, do you support the use of weapons to Israel for use in Gaza? It's one part. The other part is, do you support aid to Ukraine?
Thank you. So I believe that, yes, I support the United States being an ally to Israel, but I don't think Israel needs any more weapons. And I don't think the United States should be, I think we can much better use our influence with Israel to ensure that we are not allowing genocide. We have to abide by Geneva Conventions, and every other country must abide by that. So I am not in support of genocide. You said for Ukraine, I'm definitely in support of the United States supporting Ukraine and making sure that, again, genocide is not allowed to happen. I believe the way that we can use our influence best around the world is for standing up for democracy, not supporting genocide.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Young, do you support the use of weapons to Israel for use in Gaza? And do you support aid to Ukraine?
Thank you. Israel is our democratic ally in that region. It's the only democratic ally that we have in this region. And we have a memorandum of understanding that they are allowed to use weapons for defense. We've helped fund the Iron Dome, which has protected attacks from Iran and elsewhere. Do I agree with how they are carrying out this action in the Gaza Strip? Absolutely not. And we need to get aid into all the people in that region, and I would advocate for a two-state solution immediately, and so that both states could live in peace and prosperity. I also feel that we do need to help defend Ukraine, and including in Ukraine, they had to ask for permission in order to use weapons on an offensive into Russian territory recently. And that's how all our weapon policies should be, that they have to ask permission if they're going to go outside the scope of using a weapon for defense that was funded from the United States.
Thank you so much. Ms. Tilley?
I hate what's happening there. I visited Gaza many years ago, and Israel. I definitely would like to see a ceasefire now for the people there. I definitely feel like what's happening is a genocide. Israel has the right to defend itself. Israel is an ally, and we should remain allies with Israel. But what is happening is not a war against another country. It's happening to the citizens. Over 35,000 citizens have lost their lives. They need humanitarian aid, and Israel they're still hostages. So the hostages need to be set free. We need negotiations, not more missiles. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tilley. And Mr. Marlinga?
We must insist on a ceasefire. The only effective plan to stop the killing is to stop killing. Now, as far as weapons, we have to realize that Israel has a threat from Iran which we cannot ignore. We cannot stop support for Israel because the Iranian government is bent on its destruction. It's our democratic ally. It has a right to exist, to defend itself. But we must be clear with the Israeli government that we want a ceasefire. As for Ukraine, they are on the front line fighting Putin's war of aggression. Putin has used the Adolf Hitler game plan to try to take over parts of Ukraine. A century ago, we learned that aggressors are only emboldened by appeasement. We have to be standing with Ukraine completely 100% to stop the aggression there.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Bush, do you support the use of weapons to Israel for use in Gaza? And do you support aid to Ukraine?
We absolutely need to insist on a ceasefire, permanent ceasefire, with 35,000 people at least as the most recent count, probably more, of innocent people that have lost their lives in Gaza. We absolutely need to put pressure on Israel's leadership in order to save more innocent lives in Gaza. When it comes to Ukraine, we cannot allow and risk Putin from running roughshod over Ukraine. We need to do everything we can to help defend their democracy, as we know that Putin will not stop. So I think that's a scary prospect for a lot of Europe, and so we have to stop Putin, and we have to fund the Ukrainians so they can effectively stave off what has been a tragedy for the last several months.
Thank you very much. Next question, we'll go first to Ms. Young. If elected, what can you do to reduce partisanship in the House?
Well, the first thing is, as a financial planner who has worked for over 34 years with all sorts of people, I bring a unique skill set to the table when dealing with this. It's all about finding the things that we can share in common and build on that first. A lot of people don't realize that about 90% of the legislation in Congress is bipartisan. It's just that small chunk that we're gonna argue fiercely about. So finding the common areas that we can work towards, and then holding my ground on certain issues like women's rights and reproductive freedom and a lot of things that I want to enact. But it's about building relationships. I have built my business on customer service. In fact, my tagline has always been trust, integrity, and service. And that is how you get things done in Congress, by building relationships with the other Congress people, finding out what they care about, finding out what you have in common, and building on that. And as a relationship person my entire life, those are the skill sets that I can bring to Washington. Thank you so much. Ms. Tilley?
I ran on the Democratic ticket in 2018. I serve as a Democratic elected official. We have the majority on the state board. There's 6-2. I work hard on issues where we can find common ground to do bipartisan work. And a lot of issues, we just can't find that common ground. And I stand strong as a Democrat. I stand strong on our democratic values. And I'm probably one of the board members that works hardest to reach across the aisle when that's a possibility. So I would love to do that in DC, work across the aisle where we can, but I will always stand strong on our democratic values. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Marlinga, what would you do to reduce partisanship in the House?
First of all, I would remind everybody that we are all in this to do the maximum good for the people. We might have a different view as to what the good is or how it's to be accomplished, but our goals are the same. So we have to drop the confrontational style. We have to drop the caustic language. We have to realize that we are all in there for the common good. John Kennedy and Richard Nixon were friends. Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan used to have dinner together. You can disagree without being disagreeable. We will live through these current bad times. There's always the pendulum swing. We will come back, and I've worked with, when I worked with Attorney General Nessel to try to get bills passed to protect the elderly, it was very comfortable for me to work with Republicans and Democrats. It can be done. We just have to have people of goodwill who want to drop the confrontational style and admit that we are all in it for the people.
Thank you so much. Ms. Bush?
I spent 30 years of my professional career as a salesperson negotiating and in the business of persuasion. I can also share with you that over the last 14 months, listening to the people of Southeast Michigan, we tend to agree on more than what we disagree. And I think taking that message to Congress and building coalition with people, members of Congress, with everybody's views and this diverse, the Southeast Michigan, I think being able to convince people behind the scenes. Oftentimes you hear that the people that you see in front of the cameras all the time are not the people that you deal with in the halls of Congress. So I would look forward to utilizing my coalition building and skills of persuasion and negotiation in order to get good things done for the people of Southeast Michigan.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Powell, what would you do to reduce partisanship in the House?
As a director multiple times at the state level and the local government level, I've experienced much experience with having to work with different parties who are elected at that time and working maybe sometimes through differing philosophies. So I understand how to build coalition and find common ground. But I also think we are at a very different moment in time right now, and we have to recognize that. Too often, it's the American people, the very people we go and say we're representing, that get sold out. So, you know, we can't continue to not center the voices of the people who vote for us to be in that space. That is contributing to, you know, the division across the country. So I think we have to find ways to work together, but not at the expense of the voters.
Thank you so much. Next question, we'll go first to Ms. Tilley. How would you address the issue of mis- and disinformation in the U.S.?
There is a lot of misinformation. I witnessed it as a state board member. I witnessed it during COVID. There is a lot of propaganda that gets thrown around. I try my best to educate people. I think communication is very important, making sure that you are combating the misinformation with the facts. And, you know, every time I hear something at the state board table that's misinformation that's been given out, I do that. I educate people. And I also make sure that I'm sharing that information with constituents, so I'm taking it outside of the board. So I think your social media outlets, making sure that you are doing newsletters, different things, and having town hall meetings as a congresswoman, making sure that I'm getting information out to my constituents so that you know the real facts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Marlinga?
I have served as a volunteer attorney for the ACLU, and I'm very dedicated to individual rights and to the First Amendment. I realize that disinformation and misinformation is a huge problem, but there's almost nothing that government officially can do, because if you created a ministry of truth, you would get into a 1984 style bookish way of looking at things and having the government itself could decide what is true and not true. We can't do that. We have to rely upon the basic tenet of our democracy, the basic belief in the First Amendment, and that is that if you allow all free speech to be said, the truth will rise to the top. It's frustrating because it doesn't always happen quickly. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. But any other way that we would try to censor speech or try to have the government tell us what is true, we would really enter into a very dark age. And so I believe in the First Amendment and free speech.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bush, how would you address the issue of mis- and disinformation in the U.S.?
I think we are living in a time where our media and our news outlets put out what they think the people want to hear. It's called confirmation bias. People will always seek out information that they think aligns with their own beliefs. As a representative for Southeast Michigan, I'm making myself available to the constituents and the people of the greater Michigan's 10th district, listening to what they have to say, conducting town hall meetings, whether they're live or virtual, and always relying on the facts. I'm a STEM person. I have my bachelor's degree in biology, and I believe in always providing facts. And I think as long as we stick to the facts and we listen to what people are saying back and then combating that with the truth, I think we'll be all right.
Thank you very much. Ms. Powell?
I believe we have to start with holding leaders accountable for telling the truth. Free speech, absolutely, is a part of our Constitution. It is a right. But actually trying to, folks in leadership and elected office in particular that purposely lead folks astray, there should be accountability for that. And I also think that, we have to, I don't know what disinformation is, I think we've created all of these other, names for, it's a lie. I mean, you just have to talk to people and get back to the core because, we're talking above people's heads and people know they're being led astray. Others, their voices are being, not everyone has the same right to free speech. So it gets back to leaning toward democracy. Are we meeting out our Constitution and our rights equally across the board? But we got to tell the truth first.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Young?
Yeah, I think there's two things that we could do to address this problem. One is reinstate the Fairness Act, which in our media, it used to be back in the 70s and 80s. I think Reagan was the one who did away with this, where if someone on TV said this, then someone with the opposing opinion was able to come on and give that opinion. That's been done away with, and that's how we've had the rise of a lot of these cable TV shows that are very polarizing, and holding them accountable to the lies and that. But also Citizens United, since the fall of when the Supreme Court said that corporations had the same fundamental free speech rights as us as human beings, we have seen massive amounts of dark money enter the system that have been leading many people astray. When we dig down into it, we find that it's a few very, very wealthy people trying to influence our political realm. So overturning Citizens United is a key issue that will help solve many of these problems.
Thank you very much. Next question, first to Mr. Marlinga. What is Congress's role in holding the Supreme Court accountable?
The Supreme Court has become a rogue court. It is now beyond the range of talking about political ideology. These are political operatives, and also in the way that they accept influence, they are doing things that nobody else in public life could ever get away with. And so the Congress has to pass a strong ethics resolution and tell the justices that, look it, we are serious. If you don't live by these rules, the Constitution gives us the power to impeach you. You will be impeached. You have to divest of your ill-gotten gains. You have to report. And if you don't like it, you're going to be off the bench.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Bush?
I think it has proven out time and time again through investigative reporting the gifts that a lot of the Supreme Court has received from corporations and private individuals across the country. Absolutely securing some sort of ethics ruling in order to hold them accountable for what they have received. It is egregious, the types of things that so many of the members of the Supreme Court have accepted as gifts, whether it's trips or cars or homes. So unless and until we hold them accountable for the things that are influencing their decisions, this will continue to happen. So we absolutely need to hold them accountable and prevent these things from happening as far as buying opinions on the Supreme Court.
Thank you very much. Ms. Powell, what is Congress's role in holding the Supreme Court accountable?
I believe Congress definitely needs to pass ethics legislation and use the power of impeachment. But I also think Congress needs to expand the court, and also because the courts is not, it's not a reflection of the entire population. So I think there needs to be a better way to determine how many Supreme Court members we need. I also think that, there is no elected office or appointed office that shouldn't have accountability and ethics. they have to model that. Congress needs to hold them accountable and be held accountable as well. The Supreme Court, also, in my opinion, it doesn't need to be a lifelong appointment. We need term limits.
Thank you very much. Ms. Young?
Yes, I would agree that the Congress has been asleep at the wheel, not holding them accountable, not doing their job of oversight. We have 3 branches of government for a reason, to hold each other accountable and balance things out. And I would agree that having term limits or an age limit, just like we do here in the state of Michigan, for our judicial roles would be very beneficial. And there should be one Supreme Court person for every circuit court, and right now there isn't. So several Supreme Court justices have to cover 2 circuits for rulings that get advanced up to them. And so we should definitely expand the court to be larger and more diverse.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Tilley, what is Congress's, role in holding the Supreme Court accountable?
I agree with what's been said as far as term limits and legislation for ethics. I believe that there should be an ethics committee and a watchdog system to make sure that they're doing the right things by the people. And I also think that when Biden gets reelected, that he should have the power, or he should put more Supreme Court members in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tilley. Next question first goes to Ms. Bush. How would you convince your colleagues in the House to act on climate change?
I think there are several things that we've been experiencing here in the United States and across the whole entire world that are making climate change more evident. We have seen extreme storms. We've seen an increase in hurricanes. We are seeing the devastation across Tornado Alley. Tornado Alley has actually expanded. We are seeing a crisis right now in Southwest America, where in Arizona, Phoenix is experiencing a lack of groundwater for drinking and just to sustain life. So to be able to state the facts and negotiate and work with members across the aisle who are climate deniers is incredibly critical. By using facts, we're seeing glaciers that are melting, we're seeing the ocean levels rising. These are all very obvious things based in fact and statistics, so we just need to work with the facts.
Thank you very much. Ms. Powell?
I believe we have to appeal to everyone's need for safety. It's a basic human need, but what will enable us to have those kind of conversations and to enact that kind of legislation is to repeal Citizens United, because we have to take away those areas that influence so much money in politics and all of the lobbyists that are pouring in money. So they're incentivizing folks to vote against it, even against their own safety and that of their community. So I think stripping that right away, or the all of that money that allows so much influence, is key. Then we can have those kind of conversations about what safety looks like, what planning looks like, and how we start to put in mechanisms to try and reverse some of the effects that we're already seeing. There was a time when we in Michigan looked at folks on the West Coast or folks on our southern border, and the extent they were.
Thank you, Ms. Powell.
I'm sorry, I thought that was 15 seconds.
No, that's fine. And Ms. Young, how would you convince your colleagues in the House to act on climate change?
Well, I have the benefit of being married to an environmental scientist, so this is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. But I do know as a financial planner, there's one thing that appeals to everyone, and it's their pocketbook. When I dug into inflation numbers recently, the #1 growth of inflation was auto insurance in people's budgets. And it's auto insurance because, and so I was like, why is auto insurance going up so much? And it's because of all the extreme weather events that are out there causing cars to get damaged, and then there's not enough mechanics to fix the car, so the auto company has to rent you a car for longer. All these little things it was the #1 thing in the inflation number, and no one's talking about it. it's because of extreme climate. So if I can reach across the aisle to someone that maybe doesn't believe in everything about the science of climate change and say, hey, it's affecting your constituents' auto insurance rates, your homeowner insurance rates. We are paying for Floridians to build houses in places that should not be built, where houses should not be being built. We need to look at that, and we have to really appeal to the pocketbook on that person that doesn't really believe in the science of climate change.
Thank you very much. Ms. Tilley?
I would work with the League of Conservation Voters, Sierra Club, other organizations to continue to advocate, to continue to educate. This is definitely an issue we've been talking about for as long as I can remember, since I was a kid, about climate change. And my opponent doesn't believe there's climate change, as well as other Republicans. But I'm concerned too, because we just had an issue where Canada was on fire, and we had all of the smoke coming over into our area, creating issues for us, creating where people had to stay in their homes if they had asthma, bronchitis, other issues with breathing. And there are people that still don't believe in climate change. But I would continue to work with advocacy and education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Marlinga?
I would do as my childhood hero, Reverend Martin Luther King, told us years ago, speak truth to power. I would stand in the well of the House of Representatives with my tattered Scientific American article from the 1990s and point out that, look at, nature lavishes upon us every day more energy than we could use in a decade. The sun shines on the pavement and on rooftops. It doesn't care if there are solar panels on there. The wind blows through trees. It could just as easily blow through turbines. The tides come in and the tides go out. The moon doesn't care if we use that power to make electricity. The center of the earth is the same temperature as the surface of the sun. The heat percolates up. We could use that heat, and it's all free. It's just the delivery systems. The powers that don't want us to hear that are the big oil companies, because they have a monopoly on power right now. They're making profits. They shudder at the thought of free power, but it's there for the taking.
Thank you very much. And next question. We'll go first to Ms. Powell. Why do you think the country is so divided?
I think that there is a lot of, well, let me say that I don't think we've ever really recovered from our original sin. You know, we were started off divided, you know, and I think that we still see the symptoms of it. Racism, sexism, classism, all these things continue to divide us, but it's because we've never really dealt with the core issue of, you know, how this country was founded on racist practices. We've got to get back to, you know, dealing with the issues, those core issues, and stop allowing it to divide us. Everything comes back to that. In community, we can build community around common ground. We have to have truth, then reconciliation. So we need to start with truth. That's the only way that we're going to move beyond our divisions.
Thank you so much. Ms. Young?
Well, I look at it as it's an economic issue, truly, that has been dividing us for the last 50 or 60 years. Back in the 50s, we had our lowest economic inequality ever, and most people go, wow, the 50s were great, all across the board. And we need to look at our tax codes, because right now everything gets funneled up into the, not just the 1%, the 1/10 of 1%. And we need to restructure our tax code so that it works for everyone in our society and rebuild the middle class and the working class, because what happens is there's a lot of people that have, or a few people that have, and a lot of people that have not, and that builds a lot of resentment and division. So I think restructuring our tax code is a really big issue to doing that. And I see every day in my practice how reckless policymaking in Washington is trickling down and impacting working class families, and that's what I would work to adjust and fix.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Tilley, why do you think the country is so divided?
I think under the last presidential administration that there was a lot that bubbled up when it came to racism, when it came to sexism, the attacks on Black and brown communities, as well as Black and brown countries outside of the United States. It was just horrific. And growing up, I lived on the other side of 8 Mile. There was a dividing line that we had right here, and it was don't go on the other side of 8 Mile. I always ventured over to the other side of 8 Mile. But there is a lot of racism that is encountered even from the police departments. And, you know, it's an honor to be able to run on this side of 8 Mile, but we do have to address the issues of racism in our country. We have an opportunity to elect an African-American woman here and make a statement. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Marlinga?
This is really not really a governmental problem. We're in a 24/7, 365 news cycle where the networks put on shows all the time. And I say shows because it's become entertainment. People who have serious thoughts and rely on facts, reason, and evidence necessarily will not be as entertaining as people who just shoot from the hip and say whatever they darn well please. As a result, the serious politicians, the serious public servants in our country will necessarily always get less attention than the people who come up with some fancy phrase, with some zinger. We got to get away from that. We have to rededicate ourselves to running this country on the basis of facts, evidence, and reason, and accepting the fact that not everybody can be flashy, handsome, and good-looking. Therefore, I'm running to prove that somebody who's none of those things can still succeed.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Bush, why do you think the country is so divided?
The rise in social media, the constant 24/7 news cycle. I think right now you have probably 6 or 8 different social media platforms, and people can say whatever they want. And unfortunately, I think there are people that take advantage of that. And that's why we have such a hard time discerning from the real information and the facts from the disinformation. So making sure that when we have the opportunity as public servants, people in the public eye, to dispel misinformation that people may have seen on social media or the 24/7, 365 news cycle, and constantly sticking to the facts and the statistics. But I think that social media has played a part in a lot of the disinformation, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. Next question will be our last question, and it will go first to Ms. Young. How much do you feel democracy is at risk in our country, and what would you do to fix that?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I do feel like democracy is at risk right now. You know, when we had January 6th happening and people attacking our Capitol, it was just shocking to me to see that day and know that I knew people that were in that building at that time. Was a very scary process. It is incumbent upon all of us to take this very seriously, to make sure that we're engaging our neighbors, encouraging them to vote. I was looking at recent voting numbers here in the city of Warren and that to find out that less than 10% of people under the age of 40 actually vote in a primary is very sad to me. So that just tells me that people feel very disengaged from the process. And we as citizens, as very active people in the process ourselves, need to keep encouraging and fighting that. We need to do enact the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill and things like that to ensure that everyone is part of the process. The despair that I feel out there that people go, well, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. We have to fight for that. I'm not willing to give up our democracy, and I'm willing to fight.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Tilley?
Democracy is definitely under attack. We saw that with January 6th. We see that with college students, people wanting to silence them. We see that all around our nation, and I'm concerned about what will happen with this election. We need to make sure that we are voting, as Diane said. Project 2025 is something that the old administration is hoping to get back into office to enact on day one. And then you can go on, you can Google, you can research Project 2025. They want to dismantle the US government. They want to get rid of the Department of Education, the Department of Justice. They want to change immigration where they can come in your home without a warrant and remove immigrants. And they also want to remove civil servants to put in loyalists. So I am definitely afraid about what could happen in our country. And that is why I'm running to fight, to stand, and I hope you will stand with me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Marlinga, how much do you feel democracy is at risk in our country, and what would you do to fix that?
It is really terrifying, the risk that we face. January 6th of 2021 showed us a person who just would not accept the reality, and he set off a riot, people died, and democracy was shaken. We can't let that happen again. We have to realize, even though we want to reach out and be bipartisan, some things which are recognized as lies have to be told. Just the public has to know they are lies. A majority of the county clerks in this nation are Republican. Donald Trump lost the last election not because he had it hijacked in the cities. His numbers were sometimes 7 or 8% lower in the Republican districts reported by Republican county clerks. It was an honest election. The nonsense that is kept alive by people who just want to play this as a game has to end. You have to grow up, face reality, stop being a 7th grader. When you lose an election, don't whine.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Bush?
We lived through an era where, and we are still living through an era right now where people are saying, stop the steal. Election denialism is at the core of a lot of the division that we're seeing right now. I would like to see, and I would introduce something like this or a bill in the US House. Just like you have to serve and put your name in for jury duty, I would like to see every American sign up to work the polls, every single American, to understand how our elections are run. They are safe, they are secure. So just like you have to show up for jury duty, you have to show up and work an election and work the polls. I think that would dispel a lot of this misinformation with regard to stopping the steal. We are at a time in our country where if we don't all stand up and start talking to our neighbors and our friends and our family about going out to vote, we could see the end of our democracy.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Powell?
I'll state again, I definitely believe that a core issue that we are facing right now is the threat of our democracy. And we have to take responsibility for not giving democracy and not encouraging that participation. We need to make sure that folks have to opt out of voting. You shouldn't have to opt into voting if this is a democracy. We got to put civics back in our schools so that we are not shrinking the voting population. It's no reason, it's no wonder why fewer folks are interested, because we're not giving democracy back to the people. So over time, what we've seen is this kind of shrinking and curtailing democracy to a smaller group. We have to take responsibility for making sure that folks are educated about and want to participate in the very country that we all are here to sustain for the long run. So democracy belongs to the people, and that's who we have to give it back to.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to the 1-minute closing statements, and we will do that in reverse order of the opening statements. And Ms. Emily Bush is first one. Thank you, Sarah.
I would just like to say that it was my son's experience that catapulted me into seeking an office of public service. My 14-year-old son had to run for his life from an active shooter in the second most sacred part of our society, which is the school outside of the home. I am most proud of an endorsement I received by the only PAC in America that supports and uplifts and helps leaders get to Congress who look at the issues that are facing America today through the eyes of children. Ultimately, if we don't clean up our act and if we don't do everything we can to save our democracy, protect our kids in school, make sure that people have good jobs, make sure that we have more fixes for a failing healthcare system, all of these things as they relate to kids, I will fight tirelessly for in Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Carl Mr. Carl Marlinga, please.
Right. I am proud to sit here with 4 great Americans. The 5 of us together are presenting ourselves to be elected as your representative. We are Democrats. We believe in racial, social, and economic justice. We believe in compassion. We believe that working people should be given a fair chance to make the best lives possible for them. We believe in education. The things that unite us as Democrats are so strong that I will say this, every one of us is looking at the November election to say, choose whomever of us you like the best, you kind of like the language the best, you feel has the best chance of winning. But then when we go into November, I pledge to you that all of us on the stage are going to be united. I ask that you unite behind the winner of this primary to make sure that we have good, decent change in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Tiffany Tilley.
Again, I want to thank the League for putting this forum on and giving this opportunity. We have a saying in education, children, they don't care what you know until they know that you care. And as adults, we're the same way. I have a heart of service. I've lived a life of service. I have over 50 endorsements. I have Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. I have multiple state representatives. I have some great organizations, including the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus and others. But they're standing behind me because I stand behind people. I stand for people. And I'm running to serve you. I will be happy and I will be utterly happy to be your voice in Congress. You would have a congresswoman who would listen to you, who will fight for your issues, and who would fight for strong Dem issues for you, and who would stand in the gap with everything that we are facing with democracy. You'll never have to question how I'm voting. I'll be voting for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Diane Young.
Yeah, thank you to the League, and also thanks to Warren TV for filming tonight. I really appreciate that. As a true member of this community, as one who actually lives and works here, I will work hard to represent each and every one of you. I have built my business on trust, integrity, and service, and that is how I will run my congressional office. As a financial planner, I have a keen insight into how economic policies are made in Washington impact families, and I will fight to ensure that Congress is working for you, not Wall Street. We need to strengthen Social Security, protect reproductive freedom, and make big corporations pay their fair share. I'm proud to have earned the endorsements of unions and over 50 Michigan leaders. In addition, it's going to take a high-energy candidate to take on John James. We have knocked over 6,000 doors, made thousands of phone calls, and I've raised almost $500,000 from 3,700 individual donations. I have what it takes to take on John James, and I hope that you'll join Team Diane and help me flip this House seat blue.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rhonda Powell.
Thank you again for hosting this forum, to the League, and to everyone that is here. I am a proud daughter of Macomb. This is where I have lived and worked and raised my family. And I was fortunate that even though I grew up in public housing and was raised by a single mom, I had an amazing grandfather who was a bishop and taught me at an early age, leave people better off than you found them or leave them alone. I am running for this office based on my track record of fighting for this community, serving this community, from the most vulnerable to our seniors, to our youngest children, to our entrepreneurs, There is no demographic in this community that I have not fought and served for. I am running because it is time for true representation. You cannot serve a community that you don't know. And this is a community that I know. So I'm asking all of you to use the power of the pen and write in Rhonda Powell.
Thank you very much. I wish to thank the candidates for participating in the League of Women Voters Congressional District 10 Candidate Forum. I also wish to thank our league members for volunteering their time this evening, and a big thanks to Macomb Community College for use of their facilities, and to TV Warren for recording tonight's forum. Please check our website, lwvmacombcounty.org, for viewing information. The League of Women Voters for Michigan electronic voter guide covering this race and other Macomb County races is available on vote411.org and is linked to our website. The primary election is Tuesday, August 6th. All registered voters who have applied should have received an application to apply for a no excuse absentee ballot. You can verify your voting registration status and track your ballot by visiting vote411.org, michigan.gov/vote, or by calling your city clerk. Note that you can register to vote up to and including Election Day. To do this, you would need to go to the clerk's office and be ready to vote. If you're mailing your ballot back, please do so by July 15th. Be sure to vote, sign the envelope, seal the envelope, and deliver it to the clerk. That's sign, seal, and deliver. You can also take it to a drop box. All ballots must be received on or before Tuesday, August 6th, 8 p.m. to be counted. This concludes our forum. Thank you, and good evening.